Today is March 4th, and we are about halfway through the 2020 legislative session. When we opened on January 15th, we launched an aggressive and ambitious joint economic package aimed at the cost of living concerns for our residents. Joining me this morning is Representative Della Belatti. She is the majority leader for the House Democratic Caucus. Thank you for being with us again, Representative.
Good morning, Carolyn. Good to be here.
So let's talk about a joint economic package. We're halfway through the session. Tomorrow is called First Crossover. What's the status of the package?
So all four bills are moving along in both chambers. We're really excited here in the House. We passed House Bill 2541, Helping Working Families, which puts together an aggressive tax credit package and an increase to the minimum wage, along with House Bill 2543, relating to access to early learning. This is really to drive down the cost of early child care, which we know is one of the two top cost drivers for our families. As you stated, this package is really about helping Alice families, which is really 1 in 2 families, 1 in 2 households in this state. So it's a broad-reaching package, and we're waiting for the Senate to cross over their bills, Senate Bill 3103 relating to 21st century schools, and
Right.
Senate Bill 3104 relating to affordable housing. Again, addressing another huge cost driver, which is affordable housing in the state of Hawaii.
Well, when we launched this package, and the package is made up of those 4 pillars to attack the problem of the cost of living, but we knew it was an ambitious launch, and we knew it was going to not be an easy task. So over the past few months, what have we learned about some of the, take the cost of living bill, what have we learned about that bill?
So with all of the bills, there was continued conversation with stakeholders, with our state departments, to really understand the economic impacts of all of these bills, and to figure out what were the implementation measures that we needed to take, and to really iron out various issues. So it's really been like, some people started session by saying, oh, it's a done deal. Let me tell you, there have been changes in both the House and the Senate, and I think they're good changes, and so we're going to continue with the conversation. What we're going to see are bills that, again, attack the high cost drivers in the state of Hawaii.
Right. So looming over all of not only the package, but on the state budget and everything, is the threat of the coronavirus. How do you think that will impact what we do here?
I think it has a serious impact on all of the bills that are moving, including the economic package. But I also think that we have to approach it in a very calm manner, just as we're approaching the public health crisis that we're facing, both here in the state and across the nation. The House has decided to convene a select House committee on COVID-19 economic and financial preparedness. Our Department of Health is doing a fantastic job of keeping the state up to date, making sure that we have the resources, making sure that we're having testing here in the state. But we have to take the long-term view about the economic impact. We're already starting to see the effects of reduced travel, cancellations, and we don't want to be unprepared as we were when 9/11 hit and when the Great Recession hit. I think we're still committed to the measures in the majority package. We're still committed to doing a number of things that we have to do to improve the lives of the people of here in the state. But we also have to keep our eye on what are going to be the economic fallout. So this select committee that has been convened by the House will pull in government leaders, private representatives from all of the industries that are going to be affected, as well as the nonprofit agencies. We're going to have to make sure that the families who may be hurt the most, again, those same Alice families that we're trying to address in the joint majority package, are not going to be hard hit by this. We are concerned about the reduction of jobs, the loss of general revenues, all of those things that we faced following 9/11 and the recession.
Is there a specific time, do you think, when we're going to need to pull the trigger on say there are things moving through that cost money, the joint package will cost money? Is there a trigger point or a time?
We're really looking at what the Council of Revenues is going to say. I believe on March 11th, they come out with another projection. That's going to drive much of the conversation that's happening. But I think it's really important to also know that as the legislature, we have been tucking money away in the emergency rainy day fund for this very purpose. But I do think it is still something that we're going to have to deal with, and we want to be prepared. That's why the House proactively has decided to convene this select committee.
Okay. Moving on to beyond the joint package, there are other priorities, for the legislature and especially in the House on mental health.
Yes. So mental health is closely linked with the homelessness problem that we've been trying to address for the last several years. We are really, we've done a good job, I think, on focusing on homeless families and making sure that they move through the process and get into permanent housing. But there is a persistent subpopulation within the homelessness community that we need to deal with, and it's those who are suffering from mental illness and substance abuse. And what we're really looking at is, one, creating capacity in the community for more beds so that they can be treated. The second thing we're looking at is really a collaboration with the judiciary, with Department of Health, Adult Mental Health Division, as well as the prosecutors and the public defenders, because we know that homeless individuals who suffer from substance abuse and mental health issues are intersecting with law enforcement. So we've done a fantastic job with funding law enforcement assisted diversion, but we still need to fix those systems so that we have the tools within the judiciary to divert the folks from the streets, from the jails, to the appropriate places where they can get treated. And that actually might not take money. It's about looking at our processes for involuntary commitment. It's about looking at our processes post-arrest, but pre-diversion into the jail system. Can we divert low-level individuals, who've been taken in for low-level crimes into the places where they can get treatment, versus just placing them in jail where they cycle, and then where we have to release them to the street, and then they can commit another low-level offense.
Beyond the mental, we're also working on the correlation between, or the connection between, mental illness and preventing gun violence.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what that connection is?
Yes. So what we saw happen in the tragedy at Diamond Head was that there might have been mental illness, and again, it's the suspect was involved in the criminal justice system, in the civil justice system, through the temporary restraining order process. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, again, how do we, if there are red flags about individuals, how do we provide the tools so as to not violate their civil rights, but ensure that they get the help that they need, as well as ensure that the community feels protected. Right. I think we see a lot of mental illness out in the community, and we have to provide people who have the treatment tools as well as the law enforcement tools to be able to divert these people to the treatment that they need.
Well, we have, as you can see, you have a lot on your plate this session, and now combined with the coronavirus issue, I'm sure that we will be talking a lot more about that. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And thank you for joining us this morning. We will see you again next week, Tuesday. Aloha.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record live at the legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.
Aloha and welcome back to Live at the Legislature for our weekly Senate segment. We're on Wednesday this week because yesterday the Senate was busy passing over 450 bills. And we're in the home district of my guest this week, Senator Karl Rhoads. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Your district stretches from Chinatown all the way to the Poly.
That's right.
And includes the Capitol that we're sitting in today.
Yep.
Dowsett Highlands, Pu'unui, Nuuanu, Pacific Heights, Paua'a, Punch Bowl, Palama, Liliha, Iwilei, Chinatown, and downtown.
It took a long time to walk it.
All right, got some good exercise.
Yes.
So you're the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and one of the issues you've been taking up this session is gun control legislation, and in particular, we're all focused on that because of the terrible incident that happened at Diamond Head earlier this year. Tell us about some of the bills you're working on.
Well, one of the ones I think that would have been useful before that would have addressed the situation at Hibiscus Drive is one that requires you to, when you buy your ammunition, demonstrate that you have a gun that's registered to you. So this person that did the shooting, we're not really sure where his guns came from, but under this bill, he wouldn't have been able to buy ammunition legally. And that makes it harder. I mean, no law is 100% effective, but it certainly would have addressed, it certainly would have been useful in this situation where he had to go buy ammunition for those guns that he wasn't legally registered.
So as it is right now, you need a license to get a gun, but you don't need any license to get ammunition.
Right, we do not essentially, there's basically no restrictions on selling ammo. Anybody can go buy ammunition whether they have a gun or not. I don't know why you would buy one if you didn't have a gun, but you can certainly buy one if you have your gun illegally, and you can buy one, of course, if you have a legal gun, too.
And some of the reporting suggested that the guns had been left in the home by the late husband of one of the victims. And you have another bill about estate guns?
Yes, there's another one moving through that I think is only in the House at this point, but it's coming over, and that is that if before you can settle your estate completely, you have to dispose of whatever guns that are in the estate. So disposing means there's different ways you can get rid of a gun legally. You can give it to the police. You can sell it to somebody who has a permit. There's other ways to get rid of it legally, but you have to account for it before the probate closes. So it's part of the problem for us in Hawaii is we just don't really have any. We know there are a lot of guns in Hawaii. We're pretty sure there are more guns than people, but we don't really keep track of them very much. So if you take your gun out of state, we don't know. In fact, we have another bill that says you have to tell us if you take what you do with your gun if you leave the state, and just having some idea who has what is useful because we don't want them to get into the hands of people who aren't eligible for owning them. Felons, people who have committed domestic violence abuses or who have mental illnesses.
We're lucky to live in a state with a relatively low rate of gun violence, but it does seem like there's been an increase in it in the last year or so.
Yeah, for the last year, well, I just read a couple days ago that we had fallen to third in gun violence, but the year before that we were number one. And yeah, it does seem like there's been a little bit of an uptick. It's hard to tell whether that's a trend or whether it's just, these are very unusual circumstances, so it's hard to tell whether it's something that's going to keep going in that direction or whether it's just an anomaly. So one thing that's always protected us in Hawaii from gun violence, in addition to having good gun control and good gun protection laws, is that our attitudes towards using them have been pretty mellow. We get in a beef, you don't shoot the guy. Maybe you punch him in the nose, but you don't shoot him. And that has made a big difference. The attitude does matter. I'd say it's probably a third of the equation. The other third being that a lot of states that have really good gun protection laws, they border a state that doesn't. Right. And so you get all these guns coming in. Some of the numbers are really remarkable. I think in New York, something like 70% of all gun violence is committed by guns that were brought in from out of state. So we don't have that problem nearly as much, of course, because we're 2,500 miles away from anything.
Right, yeah, I used to live in Washington, D.C., and guns are banned there, but Virginia's right next door, which has very liberal gun laws.
Right, you just drive across the bridge, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, nothing really the city can do about it, so we're very lucky to have the ocean to protect us from that. And another bill that passed the full Senate yesterday relates to the size of magazines that you can have with guns.
Yeah, so for years and years, we've had restrictions on machine pistol magazine sizes, but for whatever reason, when that bill was passed decades ago, we didn't include long guns, which are shotguns and rifles. So both the Senate and the House have passed bills that limit the magazine size to 10. And some of these magazines that are legal now, my understanding is you can have up to as many as 100 shots, and there's really no reason for those unless you're just trying to kill a bunch of people all at once. You don't use them for hunting. They're not really useful for self-defense in a home. So that's a move we're looking to make too.
Well, thanks for your efforts to keep us safe on those matters.
Absolutely.
The Senate passed a bunch of climate change bills yesterday, including your carbon tax bill. Tell me how the carbon tax works.
Well, the economics of it are fairly simple. There are certain things that we produce or make that the total, all the negative effects that go along with it don't necessarily show up in the price. So it's what the economists call a negative externality, and it's common in all kinds of different fields. But for carbon, the negative externality is that it goes up into the atmosphere, doesn't block the sun, it lets the sunlight through, but then it keeps the heat inside the envelope of the atmosphere. And that's a very big negative externality after you let it pile up for a couple hundred years, and that's what we've done. So what this bill would do is essentially put a price on the damage that carbon is doing to us, and then we would ratchet that up as we go along, and that would eventually, we just won't use carbon anymore because it will be too expensive to use. All the economists, even the ones who disagree about global warming, said yes, this will work because it's a market solution, it's a market signal back to people who use carbon, and which is all of us, that you need to quit using so much of it. And so it's kind of a big deal. There's only been 3. I mean, there are other countries. British Columbia, for example, has had a carbon tax for a while, but the only legislative bodies that have ever passed a carbon tax in the United States are Hawaii, the Senate twice. We did it one last year too, and Massachusetts did one last year as well. So it's a very effective tool to fight carbon emissions, and it would be historic if Hawaii actually managed to pass the bill this year.
And it would help incentivize alternative renewable forms of energy because they won't be subject to the tax.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. That's exactly how it works. And as time goes on, we would continue to raise the rate until eventually it just wouldn't be necessary anymore because no one would be using carbon.
And as we know, this problem is increasing every year, and here in this island state, we're surrounded by ocean, and we got to do our part.
We're going to be hit the hardest of just about anybody, and yes, we're not big enough to, if only we do it, it's not going to make any difference. But we have been leaders on the whole carbon issue for years already, and many other states have followed the example we set. So we have every reason to do it, both because we will be affected by it, but also because we know we can play a leadership role.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Rhoads. We'll keep following those bills as they move through the session, and thanks so much for being here with us this week.
Thank you.
We'll be back at our normal time on Tuesday next week. Thanks so much for watching.
Your government needs you. The Hawaii State Legislature is encouraging citizens to get informed and involved. With thousands of bills introduced every year, it can be hard to keep up on the issues that matter most to you. Located on the 4th floor of the state capitol, the public access room is filled with knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you. This is your Hawaii, your state capitol. Get informed, get involved, and get the government you want.
Aloha.
Legislators, are you looking for an efficient way to get a timely message across to your constituents? Look no further than Olelo's suite of easy access services. We offer a mini studio designed to help you create a short message or a 30-minute program. We also offer basic production training where you can learn how to produce, shoot, and edit your own videos. Access to broadcast media has never been easier. Reach out to your constituents. Visit olelo.org for more information.
Aloha kakahiaka. My name is Eric Kamanu. I am joined here this morning with the Representative Val Okimoto, who represents District 36, Mililani Ukmauka, Mililani, and Waipio Acres. How are you doing this morning, Rep?
Good morning, Eric. I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
A little nervous for my first and probably last live at the legislature ever.
I don't think so. It's a start. It's a new beginning for you.
We'll see. So we had a busy floor session yesterday. Two bills that everybody seems to be wanting to talk about is minimum wage and the new early childhood education. Briefly, I know you had some reservations about the minimum wage bill yesterday. If you could expound a little bit on that, about what some of your reservations were.
Yeah, I wanted to just start off by saying that many times when you see the way I vote, just with reservations or no, I think the general outlook is I'm in opposition of the bill completely. And most times that's not the case. It's just parts of the bill or aspects of it that I feel need to be improved upon or I have questions on. So with the minimum wage bill, that was when I felt that, and I understood being, last session it had come across our floor, and I know that the majority had worked really hard on bringing the numbers down, while some in the majority on that side of the aisle, they had even wanted it higher. So I understand that a lot of work had been put into it, and I appreciate that. My concern was with regards to the protection to small business owners. So we actually, yesterday, I had a floor amendment proposed, and I'd hoped that it would have been considered or adopted, but it was heard on the floor. However, it was not accepted, and that's okay. I just wanted to let the small business owners know that I haven't forgotten them. That with our economy here, we want to make sure that we remember our local business owners. I think in the Star Advertiser today, it stated that 27%, or maybe more than 27% of bankruptcies for small businesses happened back. That was a record in the statistic in February. So we want to make sure that we offer those protections for our local businesses.
Right. That's great. Well, on the topic of reservations, you've been known to have the most with reservation votes in the House, and I was just wondering if you think it would save a little bit of time and energy if you just stood up for the entire floor session instead of sitting down and getting back up for every single.
I think that's how I get my cardio workout, doing that. But I think it's a fun joke, I think, on the House floor between even my majority colleagues and myself, that maybe it would just be beneficial for me to just stand the whole time. Maybe if the Speaker would let me do that, I would just stand there the whole time and wait for my turn.
I think it's important that you have a lot of reservation votes because it shows that you actually care and you do have legitimate concerns about a lot of these bills. Another one of the bills that you had concerns on was the earlyhood child learning programs that they want to start implementing statewide. Could you go into?
Yes, and this is another bill, I think, if you just look at my vote, you might misunderstand why I voted with reservations on this bill. Starting from in committee hearing, I'm a mom, and I've been on record, I'm a former teacher. I value education immensely. I even sent my two daughters, who are now in the public school system. I took them to early childhood programs. I sent them to preschool, and my issues were not with the intent of the bill. I think the intent of the bill is wonderful. My concerns were with the implementation of it, the quality of the education, and in speaking with, I went out because I'd like to have questions answered. So I sought the advice of Dr. Kishimoto, our superintendent of schools, and we were fortunate to have her come and visit our caucus, the minority caucus. And again, I'm always communicating with her because I want to know when we're voting on these bills, I want to understand the whole thing. I want to understand the concept of it, all the players involved. And I think my biggest concern after talking with her was that we don't have all of the parties involved as a part of the planning of this. And with such a big bill, there was a lot in this bill. With the DOE kind of being left or put to the side, I did have concerns with that. I also had questions about how we're going to handle the teachers, because we have such a high teacher shortage in Hawaii that if we're going to be shifting teachers from the school system down to early childhood education, how are we going to fill those pukas along the way?
So I just wanted to segue into something that I hear often, and I wanted just to get your thoughts about it. There are a lot of people who say you are the best dressed legislator in the House, and I wanted to know how you feel about those that discussion being thrown around, and how much thought you put into your outfits every day.
Wow.
I will say I've never seen more shoes in one office in my life.
Well, I think it's, coming to work. When I got elected into office, I really wanted to represent my constituents well, my district well. But I mean, fashion can be fun too. I don't see any problem with coming to work and trying to look presentable. I think there's key in understanding what looks good on you, and the shoes do make the outfit, I will say. I haven't heard those rumors. Maybe you hear more talk than I do around the Capitol.
I do also hear concerns about decision makings, and if any of those concerns might be validated, that I'm here today interviewing you. So we'll go ahead and see how that comes up later on.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I want to talk to you about, this is your second session here.
It is.
What are some of the biggest learning curves you've had to overcome or adjust to, or some of the lessons you've learned along the way?
I got elected in November 2018, and unlike some of my colleagues who also got elected, I actually never had experience working in the political realm. I didn't work for another office. I literally came from the community that I represent now. And so coming into here, wanting to do the best job that I can, it took a team to surround me. And I think the best thing I did was surround myself with the right people who I formed this team to help me make sure that I'm making the best decisions. They know where I stand on issues and are becoming aware of what's the issues of my district. And so that's something that I've fought hard to make sure that we have a voice. I think this year, I think I tell a lot of people, I just anticipate the crazy, because every day is a new day. This session is so different from last session, and I'm guessing that it'll always be like that with the ongoing issues that come across our desks and our state has. I can never anticipate that every day will be the same, and it's a fun, exciting thing, but also it can be daunting at times to be able to answer all the issues and questions that come across us.
Right. I just have one last quick question. A lot of times we hear about all the hard work all the representatives are doing. Just briefly, how much does staff in your office play a role in how you make decisions or how you stay informed?
I mentioned the team that I've worked hard in forming, and I'll be honest, my staff is everything. I don't see staff to me as employees. They're family to me, and we spend so many hours together, both here at the Capitol as well as in the community. They're essential to me, and I think I see them. I can't speak for other offices, but in my office, my staff becomes my family. I rely on them a lot, and I turn to them. I also voice my opinion and get their advice, and I listen. So I think that's part of being a good leader, is you have to be able to listen and incorporate the ideas and coming to your final decision. But yeah, go staff.
Before we wrap up, what are some of the things happening in your district, real quick?
Okay, thank you for asking. Well, just this past week, we had Read Across America, which is a promotion on literacy. And as a teacher and a mom, I always promote literacy, so I was able to read in the schools. That was fun. Coming up, we are having a character counts fair at the end of, April 3rd, but also right before that, I'm planning a town hall meeting in Mililani, Maloka, so I can reach out to the constituents in my area and get their feedback now that we're halfway through session. But it's always ongoing, there's always community events and things that I want to be aware of and involved in. So thanks for asking.
Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next week on Tuesday.